Imagine this, it's a peaceful Saturday morning, the sun's shining, the birds are chirping, and 67-year-old grandmother Penny McCarthy is out in her driveway tending to her yard. She's wearing a sleeveless shirt, shorts, and slippers, completely unaware that her life is about to be changed forever.
Police, don't move! Hands up! Hands up! Turn around.
I said, "Who are you?" He's like, "You know who we are."
In the blink of an eye, Penny's peaceful day turns into a nightmare. A team of U.S. Marshals jumps out of a vehicle, surrounds her, and points their rifles at her chest.
I've never been in trouble with the law. I had absolutely no clue what this could remotely be about.
They're yelling at her, they're threatening to harm her. This grandmother, who's never so much as gotten a speeding ticket, is scared to death.
Hey, do you know who I am? That's not who I am. I can prove who I am. You promise you're going to let me take care of my dog?
And at their mercy.
There is nothing Penny could have done to have prevented this.
Turn around. Turn away from the sound of my voice. You have an arrest warrant. Turn away from the sound of my voice.
Me?
Yes, for you.
Who am I?
Turn
away.
Turn around. We'll discuss it.
Turn away. You're going to get hit.
They did not ask for her ID. They didn't run a single check to confirm her identity.
Do you want to confirm who I am?
Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. We'll discuss this later. Turn around and face away from me. Stop moving and stop looking back. Stop looking back!
Can you prove you're the police?
Ma'am, you see that we're the police.
How do I see that?
Ma'am, you're gonna get if you turn around again, you're gonna get tased. Understand me?
Instead, they just handcuffed her, shackled her ankles, and tore her away from her home before she had a chance to even tell family members.
Can I, if you're going to take me somewhere, can I, there's no one in there but the dog. Can I, fix him? If you're going to take me somewhere, can I fix my dog? Okay.
Why? Because they thought she was somebody else. Someone named Carol Rozak, a person that Penny had never even heard of, at least not up until then.
They're like, "You know who we are. We know who you are." I'm like, "Who am I?"
Hey, do you know who I am?
Yes, well, you're going to step around.
Who are I?
Carol Rozak.
That's not who I am.
Penny McCarthy.
Yes.
Yes.
But I've never been Carol Rozak. I can prove who I am.
Okay.
But her pleas fell on deaf ears. The U.S. Marshals were sure they had the right person.
You promise you're going to let me take care of my dog?
Very nice.
And I haven't done anything.
Can you shut this?
Yeah, go ahead.
But they made a catastrophic mistake, one that would cost Penny her dignity, her sense of safety, and her peace of mind.
No one showed me any badges. I was never issued any Miranda rights. I was never, through this whole process, allowed a phone call. They chained me at my ankles and my waist and my hands to my waist.
She was transported over an hour away to a federal detention facility and locked in a freezing cell without a blanket. Over the next 24 hours, this grandmother was strip searched 3 times.
And they do a roll call, and this lady says, "Carol Ann Rozak." And I'm looking around, and all the other girls go, "That's you?" And it's like, no, it's not. We go into a room where there's 20 other women, and the 3 of us are now being strip searched in front of 20 other women. I keep saying, "I was told I could make a phone call. I was told I could make a phone call." And they're like, "Well, it's 11 o'clock now. The phones are shut off." But I've never been allowed to make a phone call. Nobody knows where I'm at.
All the while, she kept repeating the truth. "I'm Penny McCarthy, not Carol Rozak." But nobody listened. Except, thankfully, her public defender. The next day she was hauled into court. Her public defender did believe her, and so her public defender told the judge that she was not Carol Rozak. The prosecutor asked for more time to check fingerprints and DNA. The judge agreed, setting a hearing for a month later, but in the meantime, releasing Penny.
I'm going to call you Ms. McCarthy at this point. So I am releasing you from custody in the building, and I'm not going to order you to present to pretrial services. I am going to, and I'm not going to set release conditions.
But the nightmare was far from over. The government eventually dismissed the case, but the damage was done. Penny, once a vibrant grandmother who loved to walk her dog, now lives in fear. She sold her home and left the state, desperate to escape the trauma that she suffered that day. And even now she's haunted by the idea that law enforcement could once again mistake her for Carol Rozak, and again, not listen to her pleas for help.
I don't want any part of it anymore. I don't trust any government official or anybody anymore. I raised 5 children to respect the law, and now I feel stupid for doing that. My fear is that they're going to pull me over one day, and for whatever reason, something happens, and they're going to fingerprint me, and all of a sudden I'm going to be Carol Ann Rozak and stuck someplace where nobody knows where I'm at.
The U.S. Marshals violated Penny's rights in every way imaginable. They held her at gunpoint, they frisked her, they searched her, they arrested her, all without any legitimate reason to do so. They arrested her without ever confirming her identity,
But I've never been Carol Rozak. I can prove who I am.
violating her Fourth Amendment protections. The Fourth Amendment requires that when police officers arrest somebody on an arrest warrant, they have to have a reasonable belief that the individual whom they are arresting is the same person named on the warrant. It wasn't just a mistake. It was a gross abuse of power. But Penny isn't staying silent. She has teamed up with the Institute for Justice to hold the officers and the U.S. government accountable for their inexcusable constitutional violations. I got a chance to talk about the case with Marie Miller, an attorney with the Institute for Justice based out of their office in Phoenix, Arizona. Did they actually think that Penny McCarthy was Carol Rozak, like living a double life?
It's unclear. What's clear is that they didn't run even basic checks to make sure that Penny was Carol Rozak or some violent criminal. Carol Rozak, as far as we know, was not a violent criminal, but that's how they were treating Penny. The officers had a 25-year-old warrant issued out of a court in Oklahoma for Carol Rozak failing to check in with a probation officer after she had been released from a federal prison in Texas for nonviolent crimes.
Do you have any idea what led them to Penny McCarthy?
We don't know all the steps that got them to Penny. The only clue that we have is that Carol Rozak may have used the name Penny Burns at one time. She apparently used a whole bunch of aliases, and one of them was Penny Burns. And Penny McCarthy's maiden name for the first 17 years of her life was Penny Burns. But so was a lot of other people's name. She's not the only Penny Burns in the country, and Penny Burns is not the only alias that Rozak supposedly used. So there are thousands and thousands of people in the United States that are as connected to Carol Rozak as Penny was.
After they finally admitted that she was not Carol Rozak and released her and dismissed the criminal charges, did anybody so much as apologize to Penny?
No, they've not apologized. They haven't given her any answers. The closest they came was to say this was an unfortunate inconvenience to Penny. Calling it an inconvenience is absurd.
I take it also, if they didn't apologize, they haven't offered any sort of compensation to her.
No, they've made a statement that it looks like their officers did everything fine.
Do you know yet at this point, and I assume you don't, whether or not there has been any sort of internal discipline to the officers who made this mistake?
Not from what we can tell. We have no indication that anyone has been disciplined for this or that any policies, procedures have changed as a result. The Marshals Service has issued a statement essentially saying that the officers appeared to do everything just fine.
By the way, after Marie told me that the U.S. Marshals Service had said it was basically just an inconvenience and they had done everything properly, I had to go find that statement for myself, and I actually did find it, and here it is. They provided this statement to ABC 15 in Arizona, and it says that they received confirmation via fingerprint analysis that Penny McCarthy was not, in fact, the fugitive Carol Rozak. But get this, they said a preliminary review of this investigation indicates that U.S. Marshals Marshal Service officials followed proper procedures in good faith reliance on the outstanding warrant. The U.S. Marshal Service will continue its evaluation of the investigation of this matter. The U.S. Marshal Service regrets any inconvenience caused by the mistaken identification of Miss McCarthy.
What's clear is that had anybody done even the most basic of checks on Penny's background, it would have been obvious that this is not Carol Rozak. And they didn't even let Penny show them her driver's license. She had a real ID at the time. She had plenty of ways to show that she's not Carol Rozak, and the officers just weren't interested.
But I've never been Carol Rozak. I can prove who I am.
And it isn't just about justice for Penny, it's about holding the government accountable so that something like this does not happen again to another innocent victim. All they required was like a very tiny amount of investigative work, and they refused to do it because they just don't care, because there's no accountability
There's
whatsoever.
no consequences, right? There is nothing Penny could have done to have prevented this. She didn't do anything wrong, and that she just couldn't have taken any other proactive measures to prevent this from happening.
So Penny did nothing wrong. She was completely innocent. Whose decisions led to this outcome? It was these federal law enforcement officers who chose the wrong person, who didn't bother to investigate, who didn't bother to listen. It was their decisions that caused this woman harm. There's no dispute that it is a Fourth Amendment violation for police officers to arrest somebody on a wrong warrant in a case of mistaken identity where those officers have no reasonable belief that it's the same person. So why don't these officers seem concerned with following the Fourth Amendment? Well, it's probably because they're federal law enforcement officers, and it's almost impossible to sue them. No consequences, so they don't care. That's why it's important that a national nonprofit law firm with a huge amount of resources has taken on this case, not only to get justice for Penny, but to take the case all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, if necessary, in order to create new law, good law, that's going to change the present circumstances that we have where federal police officers can do whatever they want and you can't sue them. Without accountability, without consequences, government employees are just going to say, well, it's good enough for government work. Here, look how disgraceful and pathetic and cowardly their actions were. And not only doing a crappy job, but aiming their weapons at and mistreating this elderly, helpless woman they were actually charged by us to protect.
Do you want to confirm who I am?
Put your hands behind your back. Stop moving and stop looking back. Stop looking back! If you turn around again, you're going to get tased. Understand me?
Okay, do you know who I am? That's not who I am. I can prove who I am. You promise you're going to let me take care of my dog?
Shameful. If the U.S. Marshal Service is not going to discipline their own employees here, you know they're not going to do it ever. Government officials must be held accountable when they violate constitutional rights and destroy innocent people's lives. Penny McCarthy's story is a wake-up call and a lesson for all of us. But it's not too late, because you can help by donating right now to the Institute for Justice using my custom donation link. We all need to stay informed and keep fighting for justice together. Our rights don't end where your fear begins. Freedom is scary. Deal with it.